Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy, and it has officially been a full decade now since the release of the 2013 film The Purge. This was a wildly successful movie. It made $90 million on a budget of $3, and it also spawned several lucrative sequels as well. And it's an ingenious premise for a film, right? I mean, the idea of, one night only, all crime is legal. I think a lot of people saw the trailer and were like, oh, damn, I'm seeing that. And yet, it's pretty well understood that this movie did not exactly live up to its lofty potential. Reviews from audiences and critics alike were pretty mixed. My own feelings on it are pretty mixed. But there's simply no question that The Purge was an incredibly influential movie, not just for Blumhouse, but for the horror landscape as a whole. And so a decade later, I wanted to dive deep into what The Purge did well, but also where it went wrong. And of course, that means there's going to be spoiler talk ahead, but we will wait for that until the end of my catchy little intro jingle. Okay, let's do this. Spoiler talk begins now, and we're going to start with a little bit of a refresher. Maybe it's been a while since some of you have seen this film. So, Ethan Hawke stars as a security system salesman who comes home to his family on the night of The Purge, which is an annual event that takes place in sort of a dystopian America, wherein all crime, including murder, is legal. The idea, I guess, is that there's been a lot of political upheaval in this futuristic America, and the quote-unquote new founding fathers gave the people the Purge Night as this way for them to cleanse their souls of all of this hatred and rage and bitterness that builds up in the human heart. Some people just choose to spend Purge Night hunkering down, hope to pass the evening without incident, while other people have, mayhem on their minds. They go out and hit the streets and look to purge. And all emergency services, it's important to keep in mind, are suspended for this night, which means if you go out and you run into trouble, you are on your own. So right away, just with that premise, all crime being legal, I've got some questions. What about arson? Is arson allowed? Because that might lead to some problems. If firefighters can't be out, you can just set fire to anything you want. How does society go on the next day? And what do banks do? I imagine there's some kind of protection in place, but this night doesn't get a ton of political support if, every single Purge night people are having to start from zero in their bank accounts. But honestly, I think my most pressing questions are with these security systems that Ethan Hawke sells, because obviously they're very expensive and maybe they can deter criminals from trying to get into your home, but they're just such a garbage product. And that's the point, I guess, because Ethan Hawke is just incredibly dishonest with people about the impenetrability of these systems. But we can't make a better one? First of all, the system is all or nothing. There's no way to choose to just arm or disarm part of the system. So you turn it on and the whole system gets armed, you turn it off, the whole system gets disarmed. And it's what if you need to have use of one door? What if you need to get in and out while keeping the rest of the system armed? It's on top of that, there's no mechanism for attacking people outside the house from within. This family is armed to the teeth. How do they not have an option to fire a rifle outside into their yard if there are people out there who wish them harm? We figured this shit out 1,000 years ago with building castles. They've all got those slits from within you can fire arrows out of. There's nothing like that here. Why? And then beyond that, you can get smoked out of your house. They can dig under it. They can just tear the whole system down with a truck and a chain. That's what ends up happening here. I just don't get why anyone feels safe with this. Can you imagine if you got pest control and it was oh yeah, but the bugs can still get in all these different ways, so I hope that doesn't happen. Good luck with that. But of course, the flaws in his security system are the least of Ethan Hawke's worries, because he happens to be sharing a home with the two stupidest children on the planet. It's really hard to say which of these kids is a more colossal fuck up, the son or the daughter, but I think the surprise winner might actually be the daughter's boyfriend. He's older than her, right? And so her parents don't approve. So he sneaks into her house on Purge night and just kind of explains to her, no baby, it's okay. I'm just gonna go talk to your dad, man to man. I'll explain to him how mature you are, and this will just go great. So naturally, the daughter is oh yeah, that's totally gonna work. Nothing to see here. Doesn't think to ask basic questions why are you doing this on Purge night? And then, of course, the boyfriend promptly goes down the stairs, says, hey, Ethan Hawke, and pulls out a gun and tries to kill him. So first of all, he misses, like a dumbass, and then he immediately gets killed, again, like a dumbass. But even if that had worked, it took out Ethan with a perfect headshot. What's the plan, dude? Hey babe, I just killed your loving father in front of your whole family, in cold blood, and now we can be together. It is the most richly deserved movie death I have seen in a long time. Fuck that kid. But let's not forget about Ethan Hawke's son. He's this freaky little nerd who clearly unsettles the shit out of his own mother, and he thinks it's a great idea to, on Purge night, disarm the entire security system so that a guy outside can take refuge in his family's home. I don't know about you, if I had kids this witless, this bovine, I would simply not allow them near the controls to the security system. I would not allow them on the same floor as these controls. Honestly, it's so bad that if I were Ethan Hawke at the end of this movie bleeding out in my family's arms, I would use my dying breath to insult my simple-minded children. But, you know, maybe the apple doesn't fall far, because Ethan Hawke makes what's arguably the worst decision of this entire movie, like, right before all this. Because his son has already let this random guy in the house, right? So that ship has sailed. And all these freaks come knock on the door, and they're like, hey, you need to send that guy out. We tried to purge him, he killed one of our friends, so now we need to kill him. You have to send him out, or we're gonna come in there, break through your defenses, and kill all of you. So they manage to catch this guy, and they get him tied up on a chair, and they're about to send him out, but then they have this, like, come to Jesus moment. Like, what are we doing? We can't do this. Which, first of all, it's like, this is your family, dog. You can do this. Like, this guy's gotta die. I'm sorry, you don't know him. It's just how it is. But instead they're like, no, we're gonna try and fight back and kill these people who break into our home, which, you know, fair enough. Very noble of you. But maybe don't leave the strong man who's already killed one of these guys tied up. Maybe let him go and give him a couple of weapons. I mean, this movie is just the Darwin Awards family edition. Everyone deserves to die. It's crazy that only Ethan Hawke does. And that to me is one of the big weaknesses of this movie. These characters are just poorly written, right? There's often no accounting for why they are making these inexplicably bad decisions. And I hate it when, you know, in movies a character does something that's just irredeemably stupid for no other reason than it moves the plot forward. And The Purge really suffers from that. I mean, even the scene with the neighbors at the end, they show up to try and kill Ethan and Cersei Lannister and the whole family, and their motivations for it are just not fleshed out, like, at all. Like, the rich people are mad that their neighbors are also rich, and so they're gonna murder children in front of their parents? Like, I just don't buy it. And that's coming from me, who was firmly rooting for these kids to die the entire time. It's also a huge shame that such a creative and interesting premise was wasted on what basically boils down to just the standard home invasion movie. Like, I'm way less interested in this one family than I am the Purge as a whole, as a societal event. The movie really suffers from its small budget because they just have to stay in the house the whole time. Like, they don't even go out into the neighborhood, and so the film feels really limited as a result. The sequels figured this out. I watched a couple of them years ago. They're not very good, but they at least go out into the world during Purge night, which it's like, that's the main selling point here. So, you know, it's this incredible premise, but it's just a lackluster script and lackluster characters, and it's all just pretty basic. And so I think that kind of explains why this movie felt like a big letdown for a lot of people. I don't think it's bad, but it just could have been so much better. And it's a shame because The Purge actually does do a few things, like, really well. First of all, probably the most memorable aspect of this movie are just the masks that the bad guys are wearing. They're so weird and unsettling. And then when the main bad guy takes off his mask, he actually becomes scarier. I mean, every time this guy is on screen, he's talking, you want to listen. He's so good in this role. I don't know why we haven't seen him in more stuff, honestly. There's something freaky about a villain with impeccable manners, right? Because you know he's gonna live by a code. It's just not gonna be your code. There's also a really solid action sequence near the end where Ethan Hawke takes on 3 of these bad guys at once. And it's not like this unrealistic John Wick thing. It's actually, like, pretty gritty and seems like based in reality what it would be like if all these people who don't know what the hell they're doing are, like, trying to kill each other. And it's well choreographed. It's probably the best scene in the movie. Unfortunately, the home invasion sequence is just very short, which, you know, I wanted a lot more of it. The movie as a whole is very short, which is probably one of the things that works pretty well here. I've always said this, being under 90 minutes long is honestly one of the best qualities a horror movie can have, right? Even a mediocre movie can be elevated to kind of good because it just declines to waste too much of your time. But at the end of the day, that's what The Purge is, a mediocre movie, and it didn't have to be. So I'm gonna give The Purge a very tepid 3 stars out of 5. Alright guys, as always, we're gonna have more scary story content coming next week, and if you ever have a suggestion for things I should review, please leave those in the comments below. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this video, and here's hoping you survive to see the next one.